Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be taking a look at my thoughts and predictions on this upcoming winter. As the first day of winter is in 42 days, December 21st is the first official day of winter. And I just wanted to give you guys a quick update and my final prediction on what to expect this year. On this map I have created, I have outlined the 5 major regions that go into the winter forecast. At the bottom is green here, just off the coast of South America, that's in the pink box, pink purple box. We have our La Nina El Nino region. This year we will be experiencing a La Nina, and in this yellow circle up here, just off the northwest coast into the southwest portion of Canada, is our PNA. In our red circle here that goes into Western Canada and Alaska is our EPO. Up in the Arctic Circle and northern parts of Canada and near Greenland is our AO, Arctic Oscillation. And in this darker blue circle over here by Greenland and Iceland is our NAO. All of these play a major role into my predictions and forecasts for this winter, and it really does determine how this winter goes. If we were to have an El Nino this year, which we won't, we'll be experiencing a La Nina, the northwest portions of North America would have been experiencing warm conditions as the polar jet stream swoops in into the more midwest and northeast portion of the country, and we would have an active subtropical jet. What's a subtropical jet? It is a jet stream that brings in a lot of moisture down into the southern portions of North America, and that's when you typically have your active nor'easter seasons, when you have the cold air collide with the subtropical jet, and that's when you get your coastal storms. Not all the time is it nor'easters, and not all the time it happens, but that's when it likely occurs to get your big nor'easters. Not saying it doesn't happen in a typical La Nina season. And like I said, the southern portion of North America is wet and cool due to a persistent jet stream. In a La Nina, it is pretty much the opposite. The northwest part of the country is cooler and weather because your Pacific jet is more up north instead of coming down into the south. And as you can tell here, the south is in a yellow color, which is dry and warm, and parts of the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley is in a more weather conditions due to more clipper systems coming down, and you also have your Pacific jet stream going colliding with the polar jet. You have your high pressure that sits out here pretty much, as you can see. So it doesn't quite get the jet stream, polar jet stream, all the way over here. It usually lags behind that in a typical La Nina season compared to El Nino. And that's one of our biggest factors going into this year is either we're going to have a La Nina or an El Nino, and it looks like we are definitely going to have a La Nina, but not a typical one because it is weakening as we get further and further into the winter and as that goes on. So we'll probably have a mix of both a little bit. The south won't be as dry and warm, but at the same time, the northwest won't be so wet and cool. If we want to switch to our NAO, which if we go back to our map is over here, what we just showed you is the La Nina El Ninos over here in this purple box. Your NAO is by Greenland and Iceland. If it is a negative phase, that's when you have blocking, quote unquote blocking. Near Greenland, you have your jet stream dipping down into the northeastern part of the, well, eastern, northeastern part of the country. That's when you usually get your big snowstorms. You have blocking, so your storm slows down, it develops, and it doesn't quickly escape out into Atlantic. That's when you get your big dumping of snow. And that's also when you have high pressure, usually in the Arctic, that drives down cold Arctic air. But in a positive phase, you don't have that blocking out here, so it doesn't force a wedge into the Arctic. So all the cold air usually stays up in the Arctic, and you get warmer conditions in the east northeastern part of the country. And usually the western part of the country typically sees more cooler conditions. If we take a look at our EPO, if we go back to our map, we can see that it is this EPO is back in Alaska and Western Canada. In a negative phase, EPO, this is when you have a ridge pretty much set up in Alaska that forces a wedge, pretty much warm air loft into the Arctic region, which forces down your cold Arctic air into the North America region, typically into the Midwest and eastern part of the country, because your western part of the country is in this ridge from the EPO. This is also when you get your big storms. You have an EPO with a negative NAO. That is definitely the time where you get your big interior and coastal nor'easter systems. And if this were to be a positive EPO, it is completely the opposite. The western coast is usually in a trough, but in this model it's not. But usually in a positive EPO, the western coast is in a trough, and the rest of the country is in mild conditions because your cold air is locked up either in the Arctic region or it is off the coast of the west coast, pretty much, provided by a Pacific jet stream, which brings in wetter and cooling conditions to the western coast, which is usually seen in the La Nina season. So that pretty much correlates very well together, and it usually, when you have an El Nino season, this is what happens. But then again, like I said before, we're going to have a little bit of both here. We're not going to have a persistent La Nina dominate throughout the winter. We're going to have a weakening La Nina, so we're going to call it a La Nada. That's pretty much the name for it. That's when it's in between a El Nino and La Nina. They call it a La Nada. Nothing. So we're taking all that in after looking through all of our regions, our EPO, PNA, NAO, La Nina, and Arctic Oscillation here. This is what I came up with. Throughout the whole winter, anywhere in this yellow that stretches all the way from the western coast of California to the pretty much the central part of North Carolina all the way to the coast, you're going to see 1 to 3 degrees above average overall in the winter. That doesn't mean every day is going to be above average. You could have times where it could be colder than average, maybe some days well below average if you get the right conditions of a negative EPO, negative NAO, and a positive PNA all at the same time. Yeah, there is a definitely chance you could have a couple cold days, maybe a big snowstorm in portions of the south, depending how it all sets up. But at the moment, I don't see persistent cold. So overall, I have you above average temps anywhere in this yellow. And in an orange, I have you at 2 to 4 degrees above average. That's anywhere from Southern California into southern portions of Arizona and extreme southwest portions of Texas and New Mexico. Same thing for Florida and southeastern parts of North Carolina. Not North Carolina. South Carolina and Georgia. You'll also experience 2 to 4 degrees above average due to the southeast ridge here. Now, this southeast ridge is, like I said, you remember how I said there's a ridge that could form out here causing warm air to get drawn in and it'll be warm over here. That's pretty much the same thing that could happen over here, but I think it won't be persistent. It will vary in strength. Some weeks it will be non-existent, and some weeks it will be dominating to where you will have well above average temperatures. That's typical in the La Nina season. I expect this to occur more actively during maybe the month of December and January due to La Nina still being there. Not as much as February, March due to I see the La Nina weakening, but it will still be there, and I have it definitely making an impact on portions of the southeast. Anywhere that doesn't have a color that stretches anywhere from Oregon to Massachusetts, that's your average temps overall. So you'll have days where you'll be above average and days you'll have below average, and it'll pretty much play out to be equal, neutral overall. Anywhere in this light shade of blue that stretches all the way from northern Maine all the way into western parts of Washington, this is 1 to 3 degrees below average overall. This is where I have the persistent cold front setting up. Obviously, it won't be like this every single day. It won't be like that persistently. Some days it could be like this. I'll just show you. It could be a strong trough out in the east and it'll be ridging all the way out here. Or it could be a strong trough all the way out in the west and it could be ridging over here, like I said, with the southeast ridge. Now, this is just overall 1 to 3 degrees below average. And the darker blue here, 2 to 4 degrees below average, this is where I think you'll get a lot more consistency of being below average compared to, let's say, Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, all those places that are in no shaded color. This is where you'll be in a more persistent cold air mass. And in this purplish blue color, dare I say blue, but this area in northern Montana, North Dakota, and northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the UP of Michigan. This is where I have 4 to 5 degrees plus below average. Now this is where I think it will be the coldest all year. There's going to be persistent cold here. I rarely see warm ups coming. There will be moderation. You'll warm up definitely, but like mild spells, I really do not see that occurring very often, and that's why I have you at 4 to 5 degrees, maybe even a little bit colder in some areas below average. Now, here is my precipitation map. You compare this with the temperature map and could go from there on your snowfall totals. Anywhere from portions of Maine to the southeast, from Louisiana, eastern parts of Texas and southern Virginia, and also southern parts of Arizona, all the west coast pretty much. I have you at above average precipitation due to probability of having a somewhat active subtropical jet. I also think there could be a lot of storms that form off the coast of Massachusetts and blow up that go into Nova Scotia and that throw back a lot of moisture into Maine. That's one of my tracks I think is definitely possible. And this over here, this is due to the La Nina wanting to drive in a lot of precipitation into the northwest, and also the weakening La Nina that wants to drive in a lot of precipitation into the southwest. So I think it'll go back and forth with that as the La Nina weakens. And the reason why I have below average precipitation pretty much in this area, notice if we go back to our temperature map, this is where our coldest temperature is pretty much. 4 to 5 degrees below average, 2 to 4, 1 to 3. Notice how you're pretty much in agreement there. When you are really cold, dry, bone chilling cold, you really do not have any precipitation. Well, not moisture in the air. The dew points is very low, so it's going to make it harder for it to snow, rain, etc. And I just really do see the cold winning out so much and being so persistent that it is going to be below average precipitation. So you might have some portions of Minnesota well below average temperatures, but well below average precipitation due to the cold. Doesn't mean you won't see snow. I do think a lot of portions of this area, if not all, will at least see some snow. I can't guarantee that will be a big snowstorm due to it being very cold, but as of right now, this is what I think, and this is my final predictions. One last look at the temperatures, my final predictions here, and one final look at the precipitation map for the 2022-2023 winter. Thank you guys all for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed this video and have a wonderful day.